Welcome to Evolving with Every Step, your safe space for unearthing life's lessons. We're your sisters, Ashley and Brittany, and together we will explore the depths of life's experiences.
We will discuss the growth and expansion that comes when we get curious around what these experiences can teach us. So take a seat, join the conversation, and let's evolve with every step we take. We are so happy you're here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Evolving with Every Step. We are so happy you're here with us today to enjoy this conversation. But first of all, we want to thank you all so much for the feedback we got on episode 3 of gaslighting. We were very vulnerable in that episode, opening up about our experiences that we haven't shared with many people. And to hear your personal stories, your messages that you've sent to us, to see that you're getting curious about these topics as well, just means the absolute world.
Yes, and I also just want to say thank you so much for your support, your feedback. Like Brittany said, it's not easy to get vulnerable like this. We were laughing after we recorded the last one because we both were just sweating, just
Profusely sweating.
pure nervousness that we were recording all these experiences and knowing we were going to put it out there. But you all met it with so much love and support. And like Brittany said, hearing your personal stories as you've privately messaged us and told us how it's relatable to you. It's just reminding us why we're doing this. So
Yeah.
we're so excited to get into this next episode.
Yes. So for today's topic, we're going to get into resilience. And what is great about this episode is that we're going to address the side of resilience that we don't normally think of. But Ash, would you like to get us started with our disclaimer first?
Yes. So just a reminder for our listeners, we are not mental health professionals, and this podcast is in no way to replace or substitute therapy or any medical intervention you may need. We are students of life alongside of you. And as a student of life, we are always going to be learning new lessons, coming up against new challenges, and we're going to always be learning and growing together. So we're just happy to be able to share these experiences with you.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you, Ash. So you have the definition of resilience up. Let's give that to our listeners so we can all get on the same page of what we mean by resilience.
Yeah, so I am going to share the definition of resilience, but before I do, I'm going to share two other definitions because I think these are the two things that people think of the most when they talk about resilience or they think about resilience. And it's also the part that gets shared so much across social media. That's endurance and perseverance. So, endurance is the power of enduring an unpleasant or difficult process or situation without giving way. So, we hear this often. There's also the perseverance, which is being persistent in doing something despite difficulty in achieving success. So, like I mentioned, we have all heard those podcasters or social media influencers that say, you got to get up and be resilient, be strong, don't give up, stick to your goals, all these great things, right? Very go out and get it kind of attitude. But there is a piece here to resilience that people don't talk about, and it's right here in its definition. So, the definition of resilience is the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. So I think people get stuck on the first half of this definition, which is the capacity to withstand. So that's your endurance and your perseverance. No one talks about the recovery part. And that is the part that we want to talk about because I believe, and I know, Brittany, from your experience, the recovery piece, the being able to bounce back piece, it takes having a strong relationship with self and understanding what aligns with you. And it means that you need to allow yourself to not constantly be going strong. You need to allow yourself to take a break and allow yourself to have a moment where you feel those difficult emotions. And I think the part that breaks my heart when I talk to people and they say, I'm not strong.
Yeah.
And I go, you just went through something so difficult. You pulled yourself out and you're making a choice to get help. You're making a choice to get yourself healthy. But just because you had a little breakdown, I don't want to say little, sometimes they're big
Yeah.
breakdowns, and we've had our own big breakdowns that we can talk about too.
Yeah.
But people think you have to constantly be hard and endure to be considered resilient. But I want to say, if you've been working hard or you're going through something difficult right now, and all of a sudden in the quiet of your home, you fall to the floor and you cry for an hour, if you've
Mhm.
cried and you've picked yourself up and you wipe those tears off your face and then you went back to keep pushing forward, that is resilience.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that as we talk more about this piece of allowing yourself to recover, I hope people can recognize that we actually are resilient. It's just to the degree in which we've been able to exercise that resilience. And there are some people that are more resilient than others because they've had to exercise this breaking and recovering, breaking and recovering.
Mhm.
And with that comes a lot of learning these warning signs of when it is time to take a break. So you're not constantly, having to recover after a very severe breakdown.
Yeah.
But this is a muscle we're all building. So there is no resilient, not resilient. It's just the degrees to which you've built your strength in it.
Mhm.
So, what we will talk about here, as we said, it's all about learning that piece of aligning with yourself so you can understand when you're hitting those points where you need a break. The one thing we do want to talk about is let's talk about self care.
Yeah.
Let's talk about when you're enduring and you're persevering through whether it's in your family, work, whatever it is, and you're pushing through something hard, where are you taking care of yourself
Yeah.
along the way? And
Yeah.
Brittany, you had a really great example of, and we will tie this back to our childhood because oftentimes we learn this enduring behavior, especially if you've grown up in a situation where you're constantly in survival mode. And we didn't get I guess what happened is we didn't have the opportunity to learn how we were only enduring and not actually being resilient until we got into the adult years, into the workforce. So, Britt, do you want to share a bit about what that was like and what you experienced there?
Yes. So, as some of you know from listening to little tidbits from our past episodes of our childhood, things were challenging, unpredictable growing up in an abusive environment. Being young kids growing up in that, we were in fight or flight mode through our young adult life. Up until our early 20s when we finally left that environment, but we still did not understand how to take ourselves out of that fight or flight mode, where that carried me as well as Ashley into the work world of constantly pushing forward and pushing yourself to the limit. Uh, we were accepting overtime. I was taking on extra tasks well above my capacity of what I could actually do, or we were working overtime for, I think, 6 months, maybe even longer than that, where our friends were always saying, "You're always working. You're always working overtime. Like, when are you not working overtime?" And it got to a point where we were not giving ourselves that break to rest and recover to the point where we were forced to because our mental health could not withstand it anymore. We reached a breaking point. And this breaking point, I have to say, was probably one of the scariest things I've ever experienced in my mental health life. I think part of this came from that we were growing up in an environment of doing, like witnessing what our parents were doing in the working world. Our dad's motives and his goals were around being successful in work. And our mother was just trying to keep up to keep us alive and healthy and constantly doing, where we saw our self worth in the doing as well and not being. So when you keep doing, you run that tank dry and we broke. That led to not wanting to leave our apartment. We had to go on sick leave for a couple weeks from work. I was frankly afraid to step outside onto my balcony. I didn't want to commit suicide, but I was just in such a desperate state mentally that I did not trust myself to be out on a balcony. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I would cry uncontrollably at very inappropriate times. I remember just laying on the couch, staring blankly, wanting to be in silence, like just a shell of a human being.
Mhm.
Where now we were forced to care for ourselves and figure out, first of all, why this happened. What did we do? What were our motives to allow this to happen? And what's going to align with ourselves moving forward so this doesn't happen again? So I started CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and just really feeding back into my self care with getting proper sleep, allowing myself to cocoon for a while to reduce that stimulation that caused high anxiety, and seeing going that fast paced environment of the working world, not setting boundaries of what I will say yes to and won't say yes to was just depleting my soul.
Mhm.
And that just really awoken my mind to also when we went back to work, they didn't acknowledge it. They didn't acknowledge that we went on a sick leave. And that was another eye opener that work is not the be all and end all. There is something in the being, in just feeding back into yourself, giving you that self love, because you know what? In the workplace, you're replaceable. They're going to find somebody else to do the work. And if you give 100% to your job, what's left for you at the end of the day? And you have to live with yourself 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do?
And that's such a good point you bring up there where it wasn't acknowledged, then you realized I have to take care of myself. The big thing here is we were always looking for external validation.
Hmm.
That's where we're kind of
Yes.
pulling our sense of self-worth from, which I think a lot of people do, and that comes from just doing and doing and doing. And this is why we're talking about that relationship with self and figuring out what aligns with you is so important because it is actually nobody's job. And we
Mhm.
learn that with work too, because I mean, I think a lot of companies talk about we want our employees to have balance, and then people go, okay, well, a pizza party isn't really what is balance. But um it's one of those where, and I people aren't gonna like me saying this because I was one of these people that wouldn't like it if someone said this to me either. But it's not a company's job to make sure you keep a balance in your life.
Yeah.
Because it is all about the numbers. They're trying to make money. So they're going to, and as long as you keep giving of yourself, they will keep taking. And that's something I didn't realize at that time. I'd say yes to everything because uh, I would get, complimented on being a hard worker and doing a good job. And I was kind of feeding off of that. And then, but no one's going to tell you to take a break. So it's
No.
so important that you learn those warning signs within yourself of when you need a break and when you do, and again, this comes you go tie it back to the gaslighting episode of get clear with who you are as a person. And
Hmm.
when you can say, I know I've done my work, I am burning out, I am tired, I need to take a break, then it doesn't matter what anyone else says. And that is so important because if you're going to wait for other people to give you permission to take care of yourself, it'll never happen.
People will keep taking from you what you will give.
Exactly.
I think that's a really big takeaway is that the more you're giving out to people and they see that you're willing to give it, they're going to keep taking back.
Hmm.
And I just think it was such an eye opener, like you said, that nobody's going to give you permission to take a break. You have to be your own voice. And that is something, since that experience, what I've learned, that is something that I've carried through my professional life and even in personal relationships, is knowing my warning signs now and not gaslighting myself anymore, actually getting curious around these negative emotions that I'm feeling. And those were getting irrationally irritated around very little things and having trouble sleeping at night and dreading getting up in the morning. Like these were all warning signs that my mental health was declining because I was pushing forward in things that was not in alignment with me and not giving myself the care that I need to be strong in that day.
Yep.
So now when I see these warning signs, I know I need to put a boundary up somewhere. Don't discredit how I'm feeling
Hmm.
because that's what we did too, because we were brought up that we were quitters. If we wanted to quit an extracurricular activity that didn't align with us,
Hmm.
or it was just too much on our plate, like how many extracurriculars can a kid do and keep on top of school?
Yep.
We were told we were quitters. So then we carried that forward into the work world and any other task or goals that we had, we would beat ourselves down to the ground without quitting because we saw our value in being a quitter or a doer.
That's exactly it. And this part here where we talk about giving yourself a break and taking care of yourself, it doesn't just come from work. Like you mentioned, there's also
Mhm.
personal. I'm very blessed with the friends and family I have in my life. And there is a lot of people that are really important to me. And
Yeah.
last year was just a prime example of where my resilience was really tested. And so here's the thing that's so interesting. Life is just going to keep showing you where you need to grow in these things. I
Yeah.
thought I was so resilient and I knew how to have a balance of everything. And then last year, I moved and mm, we had your wedding, like there was all these really great things coming up. And then but there was so much friend stuff and family stuff, and
Yeah.
I kept trying to show up for it. And, like, there is you have to find resilience in everything, and I realized that I was totally ignoring the filling my cup piece even to keep being social. And so I just only give that example because I think sometimes
Mhm.
people think resilience, they're thinking it's through just like difficult times. You can actually burn yourself out and break yourself by just taking on too much, even good
Yeah.
stuff without taking care of yourself. And it does take knowing yourself and recognizing the signs. When you're
Yeah.
starting to feel and not everyone's gonna be the same, but when you start to feel like you're feeling, down, you're tired, you're getting agitated easily, maybe your anxiety is increasing, um, another piece can be like maybe you're starting to get darker thoughts than you normally have, and things are starting to feel a bit less hopeful. These are all warning signs that you likely need to take better care of yourself. And
Mhm.
so that's why when people talk about resilience and everyone's like, it's all about endurance and perseverance and getting out there, it's like, yeah, but how are you keeping yourself fueled to keep that endurance and that perseverance going? And it's
Mhm.
not just in recognizing those warning signs, but let's also challenge people to how do you be preventative? What practices have you set up in your day to day to fill your cup? Whatever
Yeah.
that looks like for you. It could be journaling, meditating, praying. It could be working out. Like, maybe you take baths. Like, I don't know what it is, but you got to make sure that you keep yourself fueled up so you can keep pushing forward. And so you brought up another thing I wanted to talk about with this, which was about quitting. And I think,
Mhm.
again, that like it's almost want to reframe it, right? Because
Yeah.
when you can build that relationship with yourself and you know what aligns with you, it is not, I don't want to say it's quitting. I say it's recognizing that something is not for you and
Right.
not putting your energy into something that is not meant for you. And let's put it into something that is going to be a positive and valuable thing for you.
Mhm.
And again, this comes back to the gaslighting. We grew up being told we were quitters for so many reasons. And because we did not know ourselves and we were not connected in, we stayed in situations we talked about before that didn't align with us. And sometimes, sometimes walking away is actually the more difficult thing to do.
Absolutely.
And you cannot, and I guess this is, you can't be resilient if you're giving your energy to a black hole. It's
Yeah.
basically what I wanna say. If you're in
Then
a
you're in the act of
situation.
endurance.
Exactly, you're pushing
Yeah.
you're enduring to what end,
Yeah.
right?
Where's the light at the end of that tunnel? Where's that finish line that you're striving towards? And is it in alignment with who you identify as? Like, is
Yeah,
it alignment with your source, your being, like who you want to be in this world? And when it doesn't, you know, you get that feeling of I feel like I'm constantly running and there is
yeah,
no hope.
exactly, and this can happen in toxic relationships.
Yep.
It can happen in work situations that just don't work for you. It could happen in extracurriculars that you're doing that you just are trying to force yourself to be a
Mhm.
part of, and it's not working. And I wanna, like, ask yourself why. Like, why am I
Yeah.
doing that to myself? Because, you know, you're just say you're in so I will use our relationship with our father, for example. It got to a point with us in our 20s where we actually had to make a decision to stop talking to him.
Yeah.
And to me, as I did that, I thought of myself as a quitter. I'm weak because I can't withstand this relationship and I'm quitting. And this is just, it's a bad situation. What I was not giving myself credit for was that I was actually being resilient in my why, which was to be healthy.
Yes.
And so when you're in a situation that doesn't align with you and you're saying you're a quitter of what?
Of something toxic.
What are you? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a quitter of this job that makes me work 100 hours a week. I'm a quitter. Well,
Yeah.
what were you trying to achieve there? If
Mhm.
Because for me, something I learned was I want work-life balance. So
Yes.
if I'm working at a job that doesn't give that to me, I'm not quitting. I'm not a quitter. I just look at it and go, I
Wasn't long enough.
recognize that this is not meeting the goal I have for myself. So it's time to pivot, put my energy to where I'm going to reach that. When I'm in this toxic relationship, my energy is putting something into something that's hurting me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually walk away from that because my goal and what I want for myself is I want to be in a healthy relationship and be happy. So
Mhm.
that's something I think a lot of people, because again, this is why we had our own fair share of big breakdowns, is because we kept trying to be, I'm seeing quotation marks, resilient
Yeah.
in relationships that were really toxic. And really what it was us pushing ourselves to the brink for something that wasn't in alignment with us.
Yeah. Oh, getting to know yourself. The whole alignment thing, I think, is the biggest piece to resilience is getting to understand, I think, where your source of being comes from, like what gives you meaning in life
Mhm.
and not necessarily the doing. As we mentioned, we put a lot of our self-worth into doing, but who you are as an individual. Like, don't, I would challenge listeners to write down a list of like who they are. Like, are you a sister, a brother, blah, 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 blah. Does your work come up in that? Does like what you do for a job come up in that? Because jobs are very volatile. They can change.
Well, can I take it a step further?
Yeah.
Let's not even look at external here. Let's
Yeah.
not even look at I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a
Yeah.
wife, or I'm a mother. Let's not look at these things. I look at I am love. I
Mhm.
am creative. I am joy. I am, what are the feelings that you want to embody in your life? And that's going to help you understand what you want to align yourself with.
Yeah. That's
I
what I was
want to
trying to get at.
feel, I want to feel love.
Yeah.
I want to feel joy. I want to feel peace.
Yes.
So let's be a part of the things that bring us there.
Yes. And you will find just by finding what you identify with yourself with, as Ashley mentioned, things that are not external, the external factors that are impacting your life will impact you less
Mhm.
because you know your self worth, you know your alignment, and you can find strength in that as opposed to external factors that are unpredictable and out of your control.
Mhm.
And there's power in that. There's like, for me, I find my emotions are a lot more stable these days because I find my self worth in non external factors.
Mhm.
Far less breakdowns. There are breakdowns, and there's times where you really do need to do that.
Yeah.
You do need to get that emotional cleanse because there is some learning in that as well. That
Yeah.
is also where you learn what you want out of life, how you want to be treated. And I sometimes have challenges that I face and I have a little breakdown. And I say, I just need to break down first. Then
Mhm.
I can pick up where I left off and push forward or recover, whatever it might be in that stage.
Yeah. And while we're talking, and so we will circle back around to foundation because I feel like foundation and the
Mhm.
source of where you get your strength from, I think that's such an important topic. And I want to come back to that. But I'm feeling called to speak a bit to breaking down for a second because like I mentioned, I've talked to some people where they're like, I'm not strong. I've needed to take time off work or I've needed to do this. And I just hit complete rock bottom. Yeah, so have I. Like I
Yeah.
will tell you, I had, when our father passed away, it was the most difficult situation I think either one of us had been through it. We had not spoken to him in 5 years, which was a conscious decision we had to make every single day. And
Yeah.
again, this came down to that took a sense of resilience, and I had to ask what was my why I needed to stay healthy. And that's why we did that. And so when we found out he passed away, there was a lot of complicated emotions we had to deal with. But all that to say, I didn't learn this piece of self-care and aligning with myself until this happened because up to that point, I was constantly in endurance and perseverance mode. I was pushing
Mhm.
myself to the brink with work. I was pushing myself to the brink with my own kind of physical fitness I wanted to have. Like everything was just so hard and harsh and pushing. And then when this happened, I was completely it was like, that was it. This just sucked every last bit of energy I had out, and I had a nervous breakdown. And I had to go on short-term disability for a little bit, and take time to heal. And the
Yeah.
reason why and that was the beginning of the most tremendous healing journey I've been on. And the reason why I bring this up is because people think that when they break down like this, it means that they are not strong and they're not resilient, and that because this has happened to them, they will never be strong and resilient. And that is so far from the truth. I feel like I was like a horse with blinders on and just trying to survive and push forward. I think I needed to be pretty much brought down to my knees to be like, okay,
Yeah.
let's reassess this. What does resilience look like? What does my life look like going forward? And that was, I've got to build this relationship with myself. And I made a promise to myself when all this happened that I was going to start showing up for me. I
Mhm.
was going to listen to myself when things weren't working, and I wasn't going to keep myself in situations or even put myself in an endurance state and not take care of myself along the way.
Yeah. That's that's huge. I like you have done like a complete 180 since then. And image that comes to mind when you talk about like being broken down, like being a horse and you need to be brought down to your knees in order to face your reality there. I think of if a person breaks a bone and they have a cast on, which needs to take time to heal, you put all the TLC into healing that bone. Nobody's saying you're weak. They're like, yeah, yeah, you injured yourself. You need to recover. Mental health is the same way.
Yeah.
You come across a challenge, something that could have been traumatizing, stressful, whatever it might be. Like Ashley said too, exciting experiences too bring about a certain stress. Your mind doesn't differentiate between excitement and fight or flight. You need to come down from that. Like they talk about I remember too the recovery after planning a wedding. Every bride goes through a kind of a depression afterwards. For me, it wasn't sad that it was over, but it was coming down from the stress of planning and that anticipation. And yeah, you don't like when it's a broken bone, people don't say you're weak for needing to take time to rest. You should see it the same way with mental health. And sometimes people do need to be brought down to their knees in order to make that change. You do need rock bottom is a thing. You hit bottom, there's nowhere to go but up from there.
Yeah, and it's the people I think, if you are someone who's a bit more stubborn and have a lot of willpower and you're gonna keep going, sometimes it takes extreme, things to kind of waken you up a bit to it. Um, but the whole reason why I'm saying this is, again, I hear so much from people that they're not strong and that they're not resilient, and
Mhm.
resilience isn't the absence of breaking down. Right here in the
Yeah.
definition, it's the capacity to recover
Yeah.
from difficulties. And the more you can get in alignment with yourself and take care of yourself, you're going to recover quicker and quicker and quicker. And eventually, the things that once did break you down no longer break you down. Things that are starting to break you down, you're going to recognize it. You're going to take care of yourself. So, all that just to say that I think resilience comes from
Mhm.
feeling weak at times.
Yeah. Yep. Like having I'm going to keep going back to the physical side of things because I think
Yeah.
that's what people can resonate with. You have a weak muscle, you got to keep working it to get it stronger. And you don't know you have a weak muscle until you have to test it out. Try it out a little bit. Be like, oh, well, I can only lift like 2 pounds here. So I just got to keep working at it, break down the muscle tissue to rebuild it to get it stronger. And soon enough, it's at full capacity. You're good to go.
Well, and
And that's
anyone
what
in weight training
yeah,
knows you need a rest day. You
that
can't
too.
work you
Their
can't
recovery
work
comes
out
from rest.
like not every day can be a leg day. Like you've got to give rest in
Yeah,
between so that it can come back stronger.
exactly. The muscle growth comes from the rest day, not from continuously working it. And if you keep working it without rest, you get serious injury.
Exactly.
And coming into alignment with yourself, getting back to that point too, you also stop putting yourself in positions where you're not in alignment.
Yeah. And that is huge because we didn't learn that lesson right away. We
Mhm.
kept and it's so interesting because it's been in a lot of our work situations where because it's like it's not family, no one's forcing you to be a part of it. You don't have any technically like emotional tie to it. So it really is a place that we've put ourselves in, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a choice that we've made. And it took a few times of me choosing to keep enduring and not taking care of myself and breaking down, enduring, not taking care of myself, breaking down. So sometimes if you're finding yourself in that cycle, I ask you, like, what are you doing to get connected in with yourself? And then
Mm.
the other piece, too, as you talked about that I want to circle back to is why are you doing this? What is your motivation? Are you trying to fill a void with external validation? What are you looking for in life? Like we said, like
Oh,
before, I'm gonna be honest, before I was looking for pure external validation.
yeah.
Tell me I'm doing a good job. Tell me I'm awesome.
Mhm.
Tell me you can't do this job without me. I was looking, tell me you approve of what I'm doing because I have no self-confidence to tell myself that what I'm doing is the right thing to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when you're constantly seeking that external validation, you're going to keep doing and doing and doing until you break. And then no one's there to say, oh, it's okay. You were doing it for all the right reasons. Like it's all
Yeah.
good. That's not going to happen because no one asked you to do it. And if they are asking you, if someone's asking you to keep going and not take care of yourself, well, hello, honey, that's a situation. Get out of there. Like, you know.
Ashley's spitting some truths and people are feeling it now. I can tell some people are like, "Oh, ah." To say
But,
that.
well, because here's another thing. We're all responsible for ourselves.
Yes.
What are you doing to take responsibility for your own happiness, for your own health?
Yeah.
And what's so beautiful about that means that you have the power to make your life better and you have the power to be happier. So
Yes.
let's talk about that motivation though, Brittany. Where has that shifted for you? And how are you
Motivation.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my motivation in life has completely shifted. You mature, you get to know yourself. For me, my driving factors are that what I identify with, I'm a child of God. And something that has helped me persevere, endure, be resilient is knowing that God will always give me double for my trouble. It's famous scripture.
Mhm.
And safe to say, He has. I have a beautiful life now. I want for nothing, where I have everything that I'd want in life is not of financial things, it's of relationships and experiences and bonds that I can form with people. Um, so when your values shift to things that are not of the external world affects you a little bit less because then you do things that align with those values that are more in your control.
Mhm.
So what I really focus on my self-care every single day. First thing in the morning, I read a chapter to whatever I can squeeze in from my Bible. We're doing a study right now, a book study on A Course in Miracles, which is really helping with my spiritual growth. I
Mhm.
get physical activity in because I get my energy up, my confidence up, just feeding more into myself before I even start my work day. And then I make sure I have a good meal. So I've already done like 2 to 3 things in my morning that has fed into myself and my self-worth before I even start on the external factor of work. And then anything that happens after that, I just know I do the best that I can as I can for as an employee while setting my boundaries for my mental health. And then I continue my practices of healthy hobbies after work. So that's just an example of like once I shift my motives away from the doing and the external things of this world to things that are more in my control of my spirituality, how I feed into myself and my mental health,
Mhm.
that has made me live a much more sustainable, stable life.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's such a and I feel like I've been going through that shift myself, which is awesome. And I know some people listening might not be into the spiritual thing, might not believe in God. I just and in that case, I encourage you to tap into how you want to feel. Like really, like Brittany
Mhm.
said, like not the external. Like, and I do want to say we understand we have jobs. We need to make
Yeah.
money because we need to pay bills. We want to have a roof over our head and food in the fridge. Like, of course, it's important. And we're going to
Yeah.
have we both have our own external goals, of course. But where are you rooting? Where is your foundation? Because like Brittany said, external can be taken away at any moment.
Yeah.
And when everything externally gets stripped away, what can you say your foundation is? For us, it's our relationship with God. It's knowing where, we come from, that light. It's our faith. It's that really at the end of the day, all there is love. And I want to be love. I want to give
Mhm.
love. I want to receive love. When you can remind yourselves of where you come from, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can survive without that external
Mhm.
piece,
Yeah.
And what's amazing about tuning into faith and love and that kind of energy is it's accessible to you all the time, no matter where you are, which is a really beautiful thing. And that's why it's a great thing that I've pulled strength from to help keep me resilient and part of my self care.
Mhm.
I say I do recommend find your foundation, what keeps you rooted in whatever that belief might be. Root yourself in that. What is
Yeah.
something that is stable enough that no matter what's going on, you can pull from? So, all of that was a very long way of saying that, you know, it was a long way of saying that your identity and what you put your foundation of self worth into is going to play a big part in your resilience towards
Yes.
things. And so, we recommend putting your foundation into something that can't be shaken, that is not impacted by the external around you.
Mm.
And when you can do that, you then know you always are going to have something to lean on no matter what's going on in your life.
Well, I think that is a great place to leave this podcast off on. So, to highlight on what we talked about today with resilience, there are 3 sides to resilience. There's the endurance and perseverance side, pushing through. But then what we really focused on today was the self love part of resilience, what we're doing to take care of ourselves in recovery of enduring and persevering a challenge. So, our question for our listeners today is to think about what we're doing right now to fill our cup, to feed back into ourselves that'll help us keep going, keep pushing through, and to recover from challenges, because this is super, super important for our mental health and becoming resilient. Second, we have this misconception that quitting is a weakness when what we want is to reframe that in our mind is that if we're leaving something that doesn't align with ourselves, that actually takes a lot of strength. So think back on a situation that you may be in or may have been in the past where you were trying to be resilient, where you should have actually been walking away from it because it doesn't align with who you are and your purpose in this life. Now, lastly, something super important that we discussed as well is having a strong foundation to help you understand your why for enduring, persevering through a situation. And we focused on how important it is to make this foundation something that is not external because external factors can be taken away at any moment and then your whole foundation is shooken. So ask yourself, why am I pushing through this scenario, through this situation? And does it align with my purpose? Does it align with the foundation that I've set for myself? If you are asking yourself that question and the reason why is something of external factors, you may need to reconsider what your foundation is and search for something that is deeper.
Yes. And as you notice, the theme throughout all of this is really having a strong relationship with yourself, really knowing who you are. Because when you know who you are and what aligns with you, it is going to help you recognize when you need a break, what it is you need to recover, when you're in a situation that is no longer should be a part of your life. And it's going to help you understand if your motivations and your whys behind what you are being resilient in, do they align with you and are they going to help improve your quality of life physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally?
Mhm.
And so we want to thank everyone for joining us today. We really hope you found value in this conversation and we hope you feel inspired to get curious around how you approach resilience in your own life.
Yes, and don't forget to join us for our next episode where we'll continue to explore and evolve together. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please subscribe and share with a friend who may benefit from this episode. You can also follow us on social media, Instagram and TikTok at Evolving with Every Step for more insights and behind the scenes content.
And until next time, remember to embrace every experience with curiosity so you can evolve with every step. We'll see you in our next episode.